Hello everyone, I hope this finds you well. Today I'm going to show you how to make a beach popper, adapted so that it can be fished ahead of a dropper fly on saltwater beaches. Now rigged this way, the popper is acting as an attractor to get the attention of sea-run cutthroat trout who love nothing more than to aggressively chase down topwater flies. Our hope is though that they're going to find and eat the subsurface fly. So this is your basic popper dropper, except that there's no hook in the popper. Instead it's got a little plug or a stopper to fix it along the leader. Now the construction adheres pretty closely to the design of Leyland Miyawaki's Beach Popper, but I'm using entirely different materials which are going to help it to shed some of the bulk, cast a bit more easily and float better. So in the vise I've clamped my HMH tube fly adapter, and you'll see I've got the pin with its angled end facing rearwards. I'm going to tie the popper on these small size poly tubes. I'm just cutting a length of about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to insert the tube so that there's only about 1/8 of an inch exposed behind the clamp, like that. I'll just tighten that. Now I want the back edge of my popper head to come about halfway down the exposed tube, and that point is where I'm going to tie in my thread. So I'm using UTC 140 in white, but you could use any strong thread. And I'm only going to make a 1/4 inch thread base, and I'm going to take care not to tie in anything forward of that thread. So the main underbody is made from this Deadly Dazzle in white. This is a translucent synthetic fibre with a little bit of flash already mixed in. So I'm just going to cut off a hank about the width of a pencil, and I'm going to just try and taper the back end of the bunch. And I want this to extend about 2 inches from the from my tie-in point. Happy with that. Just secure it with a few wraps right on top of the tube. And trim away the surplus with an angled cut. Now I'll use my thumbnail just to spread the fibers around the tube a little bit. I missed a little bit there. Now I'm going to enclose the underbody with a pair of grizzly saddle hackles. My favourite source for these is actually the Whiting Fly Tires Variety Pack. So if you're not familiar with these packs, they've got a random selection of really good quality saddles and capes, offcuts. I think I bought 3 of them over the years, and it's a great resource for collars and wings, for saltwater flies, woolly buggers, steelhead patterns, you name it. Lots of nice natural colours too. Here's the natural grizzly pieces that I've accumulated from those packs. You can generally find them for under 25 bucks, and I reckon they're the best deal in fly tying. Alright, back to the popper. Now I've picked out a matched pair of feathers, and I'm going to measure them to the length of the underbody. One at a time. I'm going to clip the stem at the front of my tie-in point. I'm going to take my other feather and line it up and trim it so that they're both the same length. Now, I'm not going to remove the barbs and fluff from the base of the stems, as they will help me to tie in the feathers without them rolling around the tube on me. So just tie right over all that fluff and it should stay in place. That's that one in place. And I'll do the same on the other side. Now I'm going to add a little bit of lateral flash, and I'm using crinkle mirror flash, but the small size lateral scale from Hedron would work very well too. I've just got one strand which I'll cut in half and then double up. This stuff is way easy to tie in if you moisten it first. I'm aiming to get that flash right along the center line of the feathers. Just fold it back and do the other side. Now I've got some crystal flash in mixed colors for an overbody. And I'm just going to use 3 strands, which I've divided in half to make 6. Move my thread to the front, then veil those strands over my tying thread and bind it back along the top of the tube. Just cut that a tiny bit longer. Now I'm making the wing from a mix of slinky fiber in 4 different colors. So I've got chartreuse, steep purple, royal blue and orange, and I've already made up my mixture, which is the same one I used for the original shock and ore tube fly. This mixture replicates the iridescence you might see on many bait fish. If you didn't want to make this mixture though, you could just use a single color like olive. It's got a great crimp to it, so it creates volume without too much mass. So it's really easy to cast, and it sheds water like crazy. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way. I lost my light for a moment there. So anyway, I've tied the slinky fiber the same length as the crystal flash. Trim away the excess. Just make sure that's all securely tied in. So the final element is a topping of angel hair in color peacock to suggest the back of the bait fish. And you want this to be really pretty sparse. And I'll keep that centered right on the top. And that is the tying part finished. That tube's a bit long, so I'm going to finish by hand. And we can get rid of the tying thread now. Now the conventional popper head to use is a Rainey's Peewee pop. Now these work out about $1 each, and I tie a lot of these flies, so I've been making my own, at a cost of 14 cents a pop. Here's how I do it. Now to fit the popper head on your tube, you need to first thread it onto your bodkin. Now take a lighter and briefly heat up the end of the bodkin. Now very carefully withdraw the bodkin and use the hot end just to widen that back part of the hole a little bit. Now you can do a test fit. That looks okay. So apply some super glue to the thread wraps. I use Zappa medium, works well. Now push the head back on, and it should set up almost immediately, but leave it a few minutes to dry. Now release the tube from the clamp and move it forward so that the pin is well out of the way from the tip. Now snip off the end of the tube, leaving approximately 1/8 of an inch or so. And then use your lighter to heat up and mushroom the end. And you can use the pin just to make sure that the opening is still there. Now we've got to install some flexible tubing. The stuff that comes from HMH will work okay. This is that. But I prefer to use this 1/8 inch diameter silicone tubing, which costs around $5 for 3 meters. You can see that it's got a thicker wall, and so it doesn't deform as much when you push in the little plug. It's just easier to use. So I'm going to cut off about 3/4 of an inch. And the plugs themselves, I make those out of these bamboo skewers, which you've probably already got in your kitchen. So just cut off little sections with side cutters. I make them about 3/8 of an inch long. And to make them easier to insert, it's best to take them and round off that sharp edge. You just can grind it down on a bit of sandpaper. And then you'll find it'll fit snugly in your silicone tubing. So to finish off the fly, just push that assembly onto the end of your poly tube, and it's ready for threading line through it. There we go. That's it. My initial concept for rigging the stopper popper was to simply thread it onto my leader and then tie on my dropper 20 inches further down. So I just have the single knot. Simplicity itself, right? Now this does work, kind of, but personally I like to use a pretty fine leader, like 3x tapered, and the popper will gradually work its way down the leader. I guess that's under the pressure of water as you're constantly stripping it. Now you can easily push it back up the leader, and on this 9-foot rod, the distance between the hook holder and the first stripping ring is just under 21 inches. So it's pretty easy to use that as a gauge and check on the length. Still, I have changed the system. First of all, I tried to use a little size 12 barrel swivel. So this went between a cut down tapered leader and my 20-inch length of tippet. The tapered leader is 9 foot, 1x cut down to 7.5 feet, and that is plenty thick enough to hold the popper in place. And then I can use an 8-pound fluorocarbon tippet to attach the dropper. So an alternative to the barrel swivel is one of these little tippet rings, rigged in just the same way I just showed, and that is the current way that I prefer to fish it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and maybe you can give the stopper popper a go. I do thank everyone for watching. I wish everyone happy holidays, and I'll be back in the new year, hopefully with some fishing videos.